A gift from Santa. Stepping around a thicket in the forest, I enter my old bedroom, the one I shared with my brother when we still lived with my father. I notice the details of the room, a warm buzz coursing through me. The walls are decorated with pictures of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Ghostbusters. A Nintendo Power magazine lay sprawled on the bottom bunk as if awaiting the reader's return, and on the top bunk, 7-year-old me lies sick, doing what I did every day, practicing the guitar. From down the hall comes 2 urgent voices. My parents are doing what they did every day, lobbing word grenades at one another. "Of course," my mother says. "You have a lot of friends, don't you?" My father says, "You're paranoid. This is all in your head." "I asked you to keep your distance from her." "I was counseling her, Greta. It's my job. I'm supposed to counsel my students." I step into the hall, and the walls shift around me. I'm no longer in that house, or even the same state. I've inched forward in time and space. I'm drawn forward by my mother's voice, now sweet and nurturing, tinged with the melody of her immigrant roots. She had migrated here from Ireland when she was just 7, leaving behind everything she knew. Her father was her only connection to the old world, and she told us later she had always felt like a pilgrim, adrift, alone in a sea of faces. I peek inside my parents' room, recently abandoned by my father. Mom lies under the covers of her bed, surrounded by her 3 children. Tonight she has set aside her usual bedtime story. "No matter what happens," she says, "I want you to know I'll always love you. I love you because you're my children, because you're clever, much smarter than your old mum, because of how big your hearts are and how big your dreams are. I love how hard you work on your songs and the little shows you put on. I love you because I'm fortunate enough to see the whole world again through your eyes." The children listen in rapt silence, their small hands tucked under their chins. "Do you know what I love the most about you?" my mother asks. The youngsters shake their heads. "I love that when you look down from the stars and could have picked anyone, you chose me to be your mother." Tiny smiles appear on their faces. "I don't know why you did. God knows I've never been the perfect mother." "Where will we go to live?" asks Chris. "I'll find a place for us, and we'll make it our home." Jen asks, "Without Daddy?" My mother frowns as she meets the question with silence. She sinks into her pillow and closes her eyes. "I'm counting on all of you to be brave. I know it won't be easy." Turning her face to the boy I once was, she adds, "And Paulie, I want you to set the example for your brother and sister." It feels like too great a burden to place on someone so young, but he responds with surprising maturity. I'm amazed by how readily the child nods, accepting his new role. She hugs her children to her, saying finally, "Now don't you worry or fret. No matter how big you get, I'll always be your mummy." The blankets on the bed fall limp as my mother and her children disappear. A voice from down the hall draws my attention. "Paulie, get up! You'll be late." I head toward the living room where I find brightly colored lights blinking from our Christmas tree. The floor is strewn with torn paper and discarded bows. 11-year-old me, dressed in his Santa suit, hands out gifts. My kid sister Jen, who is 7, plays with her new dollhouse from Daddy. Chris, 10, stacks up a bounty of new video games, while my mother sits slumped into the couch. She watches us distractedly, nibbling on her breakfast. It's our first Christmas without my father, and my mother had put up the tree and laid out the decorations. She had us all bake cookies and leave some out for Santa. She woke up early, put the turkey in the oven, and made her cinnamon rolls. She kept our traditions alive, even while a piece of her was dying inside. I'd never considered just how much strength that must have taken until now. My younger self digs under the tree and comes up with a package. "This one's for Mom, from Santa," he says. Chris shakes his head. "It's from Dad." The 11-year-old gives Chris a wilting glance while Jen snatches the box away and carries it to their mother. "Daddy said he put a lot of thought into this," says Jen. Smirking, Chris replies,
"You always say it's the thought that counts."
"Right, Mom?" My mother sets her breakfast aside. "I put a lot of thought into my gift for your father, too." "But you didn't get him anything," says Jen. My mother looks at her youngest child with an expression that says, "Precisely." She takes the gift from Jen and starts to carefully unwrap it. She always did this. She always took the wrapping paper off so it could be saved, but I can't recall a time when she ever reused any of it. Santa steps out from the hall behind me. He looks at me with a serious expression and says,
"You can't stay here, Paul."
I laugh. "If you think I want to stay here, you obviously don't know what's in the box." While her children wait impatiently, my mother folds the wrapping paper and sets it in the seat next to her. She opens the gift, her face registering first confusion and then disgust. The object in the package is a large, phallic cucumber. Jen smiles brightly, saying, "Daddy said you could use it to toss a salad." Santa's eyes widen in shock.
"Oh, shit! Wow! That's what was in that box?"
He turns to me.
"And you said it was from Santa."
He laughs, shaking his head.
"Damn, that's some cold shit right there."
On the floor, Chris bounces up and down. "Can we hook up the Sega Dad got us?" My mother gets up and heads into the kitchen. "I told you it's going back to the store tomorrow." She pulls open the fridge, jerks on the vegetable drawer, and lets the cucumber drop inside before slamming everything shut. All three children stare at the Sega Genesis box in murmuring disappointment. I run my hands across my face in frustration. "Are you going to tell me what's going on?"
"Yeah, absolutely. I'm here to help."
Santa puts a finger to the side of his nose and winks at me.
"Think of me as the ghost of Christmas past."
He points down at 11-year-old me in his Santa suit.
"I know you used to go for that traditional stuff once upon a time."
"Polly?" My mother has returned to the room. She stares directly at me. Her glass slips from her fingers, spilling grape juice all over the floor. "It's you, isn't it?" she asks. "I'd recognize you anywhere."